Welcome to Learnit Training. The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So for Module 2, we'll take a look at table tools. We'll take a look at conditionally formatting our data. We'll take a look at the subtotal option. We'll implement data validation, and we'll spend some time taking a look at pivot table tools. So please go ahead and open up the Module 2 exercise file and come right back.
Looking to support our channel and get a great deal? Become a member today to unlock ad-free videos. That's right, your favorite courses without a single ad. Interested in a specific video? Purchase one of our ad-free courses individually. Looking for even more? Gain access to exams, certificates, and exclusive content at LearnitAnytime.com. More information can be found in the video description below.
When you're working in Excel, you're more likely working from a list or a table. Here is a basic list, and what I want to do is convert this list into a table. Once I convert this list into a table, I'll have some more capabilities to sort and filter efficiently. I can utilize slicers, and we'll also take a look at the total row. Now, I'll go ahead and click on the Home tab, and over in the Home tab, in the Styles command group, I'm going to go ahead and click on Format as a Table. Once we format this as a table, we'll utilize some of these tools. I'll go ahead and choose a table style. I'll go for this light style here. A little dialog box appears asking me just to confirm the range for my data here. I'll go ahead and press OK. Here is my table. I can see that I have headers here for, drop downs rather, or filters for all of my headers. This allows me to do things like I can sort that column A to Z or Z to A. I can even sort by color if I want to, once I start using conditional formatting. I can search for a specific value or part of a value. I can select a distinct value down here as well. And I even have some other logical filters that I can utilize. Well, for now, I just want to go ahead and make sure that my table here is sorted by the employee number column. So I'll go ahead and click on this drop down, and I can either sort from smallest to largest or largest to smallest. And there you go. So now we're sorted by employee ID. If I wanted to, I can go ahead and sort the name as well. So I can go ahead and click on Sort A to Z. Now I'm sorted by first name in this case, because we only have the first name in here. So that is sorting. But let's take a look at some filters. Maybe I want to go ahead and use filters. Sorting is a great way to kind of just organize your data, but filters builds upon the sorting capability to give us more opportunities to focus on the data set that we want to. So maybe I want to just focus on a particular state. I'll click on the drop down here. Let's say I just want to focus on California. I can either type CA in the search bar. We can see it's only going to return all those records where the state is California. Or I can just go ahead and choose California from here. Either method works well. I'll go ahead and press OK. And we can see it's filtered our data. When we run our filter, it tells us right away how many records were found. So right now it's telling us that 10 of 51 records were found where the state is California. So that's a pretty nice filter. I'll go ahead and clear that filter. So I'll click on the filter icon here, and I want to clear the filter from the state. This will put my table back to normal here. And let's take a look at another type of filter. What about the filter for the hire date? So I'll go ahead and click on hire date here. And maybe I want to learn how many hires did we have, let's say in 2023. I could just select 2023 here, but I'll use a date filter. And I want to search for a value between two dates. So I'll say between January 1st, 2023 and December 31st, 2023. I could also click on the date picker here if I wanted to. I'll go ahead and press OK. And here are my 4 hires from that particular year. So pretty good. We can see how the filters just moves all of the other data out of the way for us temporarily so that we can focus on the data that we are looking for. I'll go ahead and clear the filter here from the hire date. But in fact, I can go ahead and run multiple filters if I want to. So based on the hire date has to be 2023, and maybe the state is going to be Louisiana. And there we go. So we can run multiple filters on our data set right now by hire date and by state as well. I'll go ahead and clear these 2 filters, put my data back to normal, and there we go. So practice filtering the different columns on your data set and come right back. Another nice way to filter our data is by using slicers. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click on my table here. You'll notice when I click on my table, I have what's called a Table Design tab. And this Table Design tab is where we can find some tools to analyze our data like slicers and the total row. So we'll take a look at the slicer tool here. I'll go ahead and click on my Table Design. And over on the far left, here is my Insert Slicer command. I'll go ahead and insert, click on that button here. And here are the different slicers that I have. So I have 1 slicer for each of my headers. And so I can create some buttons that will allow me to filter by these different headers. I'll go ahead and insert a slicer for the state. This is a good option because we only have a few selections in here. If I were to go ahead and insert a slicer, let's say for the name, I'll go ahead and press OK. And we can see that we have our slicer for our state. States are in here. And even though it's quite a bit, I can still kind of see them on one screen here. And I can go ahead and just click on a button. Now, if I click on the Arizona button on my state slicer here, notice how it filters my table for me. So it's only showing the state of Arizona. If I click on California, here are my 10 records from the state of California. So it's a pretty nice tool. It offers a one-click solution instead of clicking several places to filter what you're looking for. Now I can combine slicers with other slicers if I want to. Now you can see the name slicer is not really a good candidate because there's so many individual or unique or distinct values. But let's see if I can make this work for me here. I'll go ahead and clear my filter from the state slicer. And let's see if I can maybe have 3 columns for the names here. Let's see if I can get this to fit on one screen. Once I click on my slicer, I'll head on up to my slicer tab here. And I'll go ahead and change the columns from 1 to 2. And let's see what that looks like. So it's a little better. Still have to kind of scroll down here a little bit. Maybe I'll make it 3 columns. So it's still a little bit to handle. I mean, I could make this as big as I need it to be, but if I add another column in here, it's going to become very difficult. But this works. If I just want to go ahead and click on a particular employee, there you go. It just shows the actual record. Here's Hazel Rich. Here's Janice Thornton. Here's Edwin Johnson. Notice how the other slicer automatically updates because Edwin Johnson is from New Mexico. I'll go ahead and clear the filter here, and I'll get rid of this slicer. Just press the delete key. And now this slicer works a lot better. I'll go ahead and make this one 2 columns. Now I can make it a little smaller. I can put it right here. I'll change the color. I'm good to go. If I click on New Mexico, we have 1 Texas. There are 6 records. So those are the slicers. We'll visit these more when we are constructing our pivot tables. One of my favorite table tools is the table row. Now the table row can be found on the Design tab, and right in the Table Style options, we'll see the Table the total row. We can see it's not turned on by default. I want to go ahead and turn that on because the next logical thing for us to do with our data set is to start summarizing our columns. We have a couple of numerical columns in here that we can perform some math on, whether it's summarizing, grabbing the average, so forth and so on. So I'll go ahead and turn on the total row. And it adds a row to the end of my data set here. And we can see it's already summarizing the time off balance for us. We have 535. If I click on the drop down here, so each cell on the total row has a drop down where we can insert the sum function, the average function, the count, the max, the min, and if necessary, more functions as well. We'll focus on the basic functions here, the max, the min, the average, and the sum. So if I wanted to calculate the entire gross pay, I can click here and I'll click on the sum function here. And it summarizes that column for me. The total gross pay, $46,744.50. What were the average hours worked? 30. And what is the average pay rate? $30.51. So we're getting some really, really nice data in here. So that's how the total row works. Now, if I filter the data, these numbers will reflect what we are filtering for. So if I click on my, let's see if I still have my slicer here. I do. I'll go ahead and click on Oregon. So here are my 5 employees from the state of Oregon, and we can see these numbers have been updated. The time off balance here is 82. Here's our gross pay, average hours worked, and the average pay rate. So pretty cool. So that is the total row. We can use them to summarize the entire table or based on what we are filtering by. I'll go ahead and put that back, and we can see our numbers are displaying here as well. Well, what is the max hours worked? So the highest amount of hours worked by any employee is 40. Let's change that to the min, and we have 20. Most likely several examples of 20 here. So that is the total row. No need to write formulas. We have the formulas built into that last row of our table for us. Let's apply some conditional formatting to this table. Now, I do have some colors in here already. Conditional formatting is all about color coding different cells to give us a visual. So for example, if I highlight my entire time off balance column and I want to see some data bars here, let me turn off my total row first. And so if I click on conditional formatting, I can have some data bars, and this will kind of give me a quick visual to show me which values are standing out from the others. I can clearly see on row 20 that Ethel Nash has a high time off balance of 18, whereas on row 19, Ernie Chandler has 6. So those are the data bars that we can use. So these are gradient fills. On the bottom, I have more solid colors, but it's the same concept here. So conditional formatting is another way to filter your data without moving the data or hiding the data. We also have what's called color scales. So there are different types of color scales that I can use. Here's the green, yellow, red color scale. So the green represents the higher values, whereas the red represents the lower values. So I'll go ahead and apply the green, yellow, red color scale. So there we go. So now we can quickly scroll through and we can quickly highlight those green values, which represent the higher values, and also those red values, which represents the lower values. Let's see if I can filter by color. I'll go ahead and click on the filter icon here, and I want to sort by color. Well, I can sort by color. Let's see if I can sort by that color here. Not really doing a good job. Let's see if I can filter by color. I'll filter for all of the green. And there you go. So now we can focus on all of our higher time off balances. I'll go ahead and use another filter here. What about I'll go for more of this color here. So we can filter by color after applying conditional formatting to our data set. I'll go ahead and clear that. So I'll click on the filter here. I'll clear the filter. I'll leave that conditional formatting turned on. Another way that I can conditionally format, I'll go ahead and highlight all of my gross pays. Now this time I want a condition. So I'll click on conditional formatting, and I have highlight cell rules. So I can highlight all the gross pays that are greater than a certain value, less than or between, or a specific value. I can take a look at the top 10% or the top 10 items. I'll go ahead and I'll click on top 10 items. Let's see what happens here. Actually, I'll go for top 10%. And so conditional formatting is you select the range, you apply your built-in conditional formatting, and then you just choose your cell formatting. For this one, I want this to be a green fill with dark text. I'll go ahead and press OK. And there you go. So it pretty much highlights those top 10% of the gross pays. So Brandy Turner, Cecilia Carr, Jacqueline Cordova, and so forth and so on. So that is pretty cool. Well, let's try another one here. What about the hours? I'll go ahead and highlight all of the hours. Let's take a look at another conditional formatting. This time I'll take a look at a highlight cell. I'll look for, let's say, less than. So less than 30. So if it's less than 30, give me a green fill with dark text. And we can see right here in real time, it's highlighting all of those hours where it's less than 30. So I can change this number if I want to, maybe 25. And I'll go ahead and press OK. So the conditional formatting is a really nice way to basically filter your data in the form of a visual. Let's take a look at the Subtotal tool. Now, with this particular report, I want to generate a report that's based on the length of service, the hours by state. So based on the state, I want a summary by state. We're going to go ahead and add up the length of service and the hours as well. So I can do that manually, but there is a tool that will pretty much provide this report for me. So the first thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and make sure that I sort the column of interest. So my column of interest here is the state. So I'll go ahead and make sure that I sort the state column. So that's the first thing that I need to do. So I'll click on the state column here, and I'll click on the data tab, and I'll go ahead and sort A to Z. So we can see it's now sorted A to Z. This goes down to row 52. So now what I can do, now that that's sorted, I'm still on the data tab here. I want to use this subtotal command in the outline command group. Let's hover over it and see what it says. It says quickly calculate rows of related data by inserting subtotals and totals. Well, that's exactly what I want. So at the end of California, for example, it's going to insert a row that's summarizing the data for the length of service and the hours for me. Once it gets to the end of Iowa here, it's going to do the same thing. So you can see that's quite a bit of a task. I'm going to go ahead and run the subtotal here. Now the subtotal only works with lists, so it does not work with the table. So I have not converted this list into a table. I'll go ahead and click on the subtotal. We can see it automatically selects all the data here. So now I just need to go ahead and add the information. I'll actually do this backwards. So I want length of service and hours by state. So I'll make sure to check off length of service and hours. And for the state, it's that first box. It says at each change in. This is another way for just saying our column of interest. So at each change in the state column, go ahead and give me the subtotals for the length of service and the hours as well. I'll go ahead and press OK, and let's see what happens. So we can see that it's giving us a lot of detail here. We can see here's a subtotal line for Arizona. We only had one in Arizona. So here's the total length of service and the hours as well. For California, we had several. So the total length of service is 52, and we have 309 hours in here as well. Now, if you take a look at the top left, right underneath the name box here, we have 3 buttons to click on. I want to click on number 1, and number 1 just gives us a page 1 of the report, the grand total for the length of service, and the hours worked. If I click on page 2, it gives me another condensed breakdown for each state, length of service, and the hours as well. And then if I still want to look at the overall data, I can click on button number 3, and at each change in the state, it's inserting a subtotal row for us. So that is the subtotal command. Data validation is a really efficient way to limit the type of data that can be placed in cells. So we have our employee turnover metrics datasheet here, and we're recording the top reasons for turnover. But we want to limit the list to better opportunities, family relocation, career change, or personal growth. So as you can see, we have some other options in here that kind of overlap each other. Right? So new job offers is kind of similar to better opportunities or career growth. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these values in here. And what I'll make sure is that you can only select from one of these options in here. So you can only select one of these 4 options at a high level. So to do that, I'm going to highlight all of those cells. And what I would like to do is have some in-cell drop-downs here. You can click on the drop-down and you'll be prompted to select one of these 4 options. So, and then if you try to enter any other value in there, that will not work. So step 1, I'll go ahead and highlight those cells. I can always expand this later if I want to, but for now, just for demonstration purposes, I'll use these. I'll click on the Data tab, and in the Data tab, we have the Data Validation. There's a little check mark, little checklist here. If I hover over it, it tells me that I can pick from a list of rules to limit the type of data that can be entered into a cell. I'll click on it here, and right now, it's allowing any value. Well, I want to allow from a list. So I will click on list here. Notice you can also prevent what can be entered. If this is going to be a date, you can limit the start date and the end date. So only dates between 2 dates or different operators in here. We also have time. So between a start time and an end time here. For this one, I just want to pick from a list. Now the source, I can either type the list in here manually, or I can use this opportunity to refer to this range of cells right here. So I'll just click here and I'll highlight those cells and I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and press OK. If I wanted to, I can change the input message, change the error alert if I want to, but I'll leave everything as default. I'll press OK. And there we go. Now, if I come here, I can see I have a small drop down here, and it forces me to choose from one of these 4 options. So maybe we have this. We don't have all the information in here, but we'll just go ahead and populate this. Let's see if I try to add something in here. Maybe they're upset. It tells me you cannot do that. You have to enter one of the items from the list here. So I'll click on retry. And I can type it as long as I type it correctly, as long as it matches my list. And then I'm good to go. Maybe the rest of these are personal growth. Go ahead and do that. So there we go. So that is data validation. Just different ways that we can restrict the type of data that can be entered into a cell. Let's start talking about pivot tables. Now, as you can see, I don't have any pivot data in here. What we're going to do is import data from another source. So if I click on the Data tab, over in the left, I have the Get and Transform command group here. Now what I can do is I can grab data from many different sources. From a picture, I can grab data from a text file or a CSV file. CSV files are very common in the data world, typically when data is being exported from one system into the next. I can even grab a data set from the web as long as I have a valid URL. I can also go ahead and grab data from a table or a range in this workbook. And if I click on Get Data, here's a combination. So I can grab from a PDF file, from a folder, from a SharePoint folder. So there's several different ways for me to be able to add data from here. In this example, we're going to be grabbing data from a CSV file. So I'll click on From Text /CSV. And here's the CSV file that I want to use. Looks like Excel, but that's a CSV file. I'll go ahead and click on Import here. And because there's a CSV file, I am prompted with this information here. I can kind of take a look at my data. I can see all of my headers are being displayed properly. So this was actually exported pretty well. So I'm good to go. I'll leave everything here as is. If things did not look the way they were supposed to, I can change the delimiter and here until I get the look and feel that I want. I'll go ahead and load the data. I could transform the data if I wanted to. For example, if I wanted to remove some of these columns, maybe I don't want to include some of these. This is Power Query. So these are kind of beyond this course here. I'll just go ahead and load the data and let's see what this file looks like here. And there we go. So we can see that the data has been loaded in here. Now 100 rows of data were loaded. And if I hover over this, I can just kind of see a brief overview of the data set that I'm working with and the columns as well. I'll go ahead and close this side pane. So that's how we can import data from another either data set or another data source. Now that we've imported data from a CSV file, we can see that it automatically converts this into a table for us. I'll go ahead and click on the table design here. And one of the tools that's available is to summarize our table with a pivot table. So by clicking on the table design tab, all the way to the left, I have summarize with a pivot table. I can also click on the insert tab. From here, I can go ahead and insert a pivot table. I also have what's called recommended pivot tables. Let's go ahead and choose a recommended pivot table. This way we can see the pivot table and we can dive right in. I'll go ahead and click here. And this little dialog box pops up here. And we can see this is giving us the sum of age by the department. That may not be useful. Here's the sum of experience by department, or by position rather. So we have a lot of experience for the sales representative role. And performance score based on the academic credentials. So we can kind of see if there's a correlation between the score and the academic credentials as well. I'll scroll down. So quite a few in here. I'll go ahead and just choose one to find the data that I'm looking for. I'll keep it simple. I'll go ahead and select the first one here, sum of age by department. and I'll go ahead and press OK. And so that inserts the pivot table for me. Now the first thing that we can take a look at, this does not really make too much sense. We have the sum of age and we have our different departments in here. But what we can do, instead of summarizing the age, let's see if we can get the average in here. So what I'm going to do right here in the values area box, I'll click on the drop down here and I will click on value field settings. Now notice it's summarizing the data, but what if I want to maybe grab the average or the count? Let's see what else I can do in here. Right. So maybe I just want the average. So I'll click on average here and then I'll go ahead and press OK and let's see what I get. So I'll go ahead and press OK. And that makes more sense. So the average age for our employees in the finance department is 38, where sales is a little older. So the average age is around 46. Now I have a lot of decimals in here, so I'll go ahead and fix those as well. I can do that by going back to the value field settings. I can click here. I can also get to the value field settings just by right clicking on a number. And here is the value field settings here as well. So I'll go ahead and right click. I'll click on value field settings. We were here before. Well, I want to change the number format. So I'll go ahead and click on number format here. This is a number. I just want maybe 1 decimal space. I'll go ahead and press OK. Press OK again. And there we go. So now we have created a small report, made a minor change, and now we can go ahead and get some details in terms of which department tends to be younger and which one has more experience as well. For this example, I'll go ahead and insert a pivot table from scratch here. So I'll click on my table, I'll click on the Insert tab, and I'll click on Pivot Table. Now I do want to place the pivot table on a new worksheet, so I'll just go ahead and press OK. It's already selected the data in my HR data table, so I'll go ahead and press OK. And so we have a blank canvas to work with, and over here on the right we have our pivot table fields. So basically I can just go ahead and have Excel build a pivot table for me. So for example, if I wanted some reports on the salary, I can click on salary. Notice how it places the salary in the values box, and it's summarizing the salary for me. Well, I do want to change this to the accounting format. So I'll right click here, go back to value field settings again. And down here for the number format, I'll click here and I'll change that to the accounting format. I'll keep the decimals places there. I'll go ahead and press OK. Also go ahead and press OK again. So we can see that some of the salary is $8,039,674. So the pivot table is just making the calculations for us. So I have the sum of salary, but what else do I want to add to this report? Well, I can get these salary by position or by department. I want the salary by department. So I'll click on department here and notice how it's just providing all the calculations for us. So it's a really nice way to just analyze your data. Well, we can see from this data set here, we can actually sort the data like this. So I'll click on the data tab and I'll sort C to A. And I can see that the IT department has slightly higher salaries than the sales department as well. Now, another thing that we can do, we can also, instead of displaying the sum of the salary, we can also display the percentage of the running total. So we need to go back to the value field settings. So I'll right click here, click on value field settings. We already saw how we can change the sum to the average. I'll go ahead and click on show value as, and right here, we don't have a current calculation in here. If I click on this drop down, maybe I want to show the percentage of the grand total. So I'll go ahead and click here, and I'll go ahead and press OK. And there we go. So now this is showing us the percentage. So the bigger, piece of the pie here. So IT is taking up 23.29% of the pie, whereas HR is 14.52%. So that's how we can change the value to show as a percentage of the grand total. I'm going to reset my table here. So I'll just go ahead and uncheck the department and the salary. I'll go ahead and build out a new table. I want to focus on the performance score. So we can see it's summarizing the performance score for us. I also want to go ahead and analyze the score based on the department in here as well. And I may also go for, let's say, by education level. So there we go. So we're summarizing the performance based on departments and education level as well. I could add the department into the columns, making the table a little easier to read here. Just like we did before, I'll go ahead and change this to the average. And got a lot of decimals in here, so I'll go ahead and fix that as well. This is a number with just one decimal space. And there we go. So if we were to take a look at this data now, we can kind of see that the overall performance score, the average is 78.6. And we can see for our marketing team had the highest score at 81.7. Now, what I can do is I can make use of what's called a drill down report. And this is a pretty nice tool. So if I wanted to click on this 81.7 here, if I double click on this, this is going to create a new table that I can use for analysis. So I'll go ahead and double click here. And as you can see, it inserts a new worksheet for me. And here's my table. And this table is all about marketing. So that is a drill down report. Here are all of the employees from the marketing department. And we can see their individual scores in here. So with the pivot table, we can double click on any one of those and we'll get some really, really nice reports that we can work with. So feel free to go ahead and double click on any number on your pivot table and go ahead and explore the drill down report and come right back. Another useful tool is a report filter page. Now, in this case, I'm showing the average performance by department and by education level. But what about position as well? What if I wanted to create several different pivot tables based on the actual position? And this way I can get the same detail, but based on the actual position. If I were to add the position, drag that to the filters box here, I can now filter by position. So if I click on the drop down, I just want to see all of this data based on our sales representatives. So I'll click OK. And notice how the numbers have been updated to just focus on that particular position. Now, if I want to take a look at another position, I can simply come in here and change it to the developer. I'll go ahead and press OK. And here we go. But what if I wanted to create several pivot tables for all 5 of our different positions here? So I'll have one pivot table on one worksheet. And that way I can manage these pivot tables independently. Well, that is called a report filter page. If I click here on my pivot table, I'll click on Pivot Table Analyze. And right over here to the far left, we have to click onto the options. And here is the Show Report Filter Pages. So first we have to select a place on our pivot table, click on Pivot Table Analyze, and then make our way over to the Options dropdown. And here's the Show Report Filter Pages. Let's see what it says. Doesn't show us any detail right here. That's okay. Well, because I have the position and the filters, this will allow me to generate several different pivot tables. Each pivot table will be based on a specific position. Now, if I did not have this in here, let me go ahead and clear this filter first. Put everything back to normal. Now, if I remove the position here, notice that it's grayed out. So the first step in creating those report filter pages, you must have a field in the filters box. Let's create some separate pivot tables based on position. I'll go ahead and click on the drop down here. I'll click on Show Report Filter Pages. We can see because we have position in here, we can create the report pages. I'll press OK. Here is our first pivot table, accountants only. Here's the next one, developers only, HR managers, marketing lead, and sales. So these pivot tables will behave independently of the others. So it's a nice way, instead of copying your pivot table and trying to paste it, we can create those report filter pages. Now I can go ahead and build out this if I want to. I could even go ahead and just have the department and the education level all in one column. Now that we've analyzed our data, taking a look at different tools of the pivot table, let's go ahead and create a visual. So if I click on my pivot table, I'll go back to Pivot Table Analyze. Here is our pivot chart. I'll go ahead and insert a pivot chart and let's see what it looks like. So I'll click on Pivot Chart here, and here is a clustered column chart, lots of data in there, but pretty nice to read. Here's a line chart. Here's a pie chart. Well, I'll go for that very first one, which is the column chart here, and I'll go ahead and press OK. So here is my chart, and this is interactive, just like the data charts from Module 1. If I just highlight or just move my mouse over the different data bars here, it's giving me the actual values. So this is giving me a nice visual in terms of the average scores based on, in this case, based on the education level. So for our masters, we can see we have higher performance overall, and for HR and marketing, which is pretty cool. Now, my pivot table is tied to the data that's on my pivot chart. So if I make any changes here to my pivot table, my pivot chart should update automatically. For example, I'll click on my pivot table. Maybe I don't want to show the department, maybe just by education level. I'll go ahead and remove the department here. And there we go. We can see the pivot table is showing the average performance score based on degree level. And here we can see our pivot chart has been updated as well. I do have filters here for our pivot chart as well. We can filter by position, and we can also filter by education level. So if I just go for master's and PhD, we can see my pivot chart is updated and my pivot table is updated as well to reflect those filters. So we can filter either from the pivot table or from the pivot chart. I'll go ahead and reset that filter. So I'll clear the filters from my pivot chart, and there we go. Feel free to click on the little chart styles here and choose a different style. And there you go. So that wraps up our Module 2. Just as a recap, we're able to take a look at some table tools. We're able to utilize conditional formatting for some color visuals. We're able to take a look at the Subtotals tool. And we're able to take a look at data validation as well. And finally, we spent some time taking a look at various pivot table tools. Well, congrats on completing the course. I look forward to seeing all of you in a future Learnit course.
Thanks for watching. To earn certificates and watch our courses without ads, check out LearnitAnytime.com.